the regular meeting of Southfield City Council, February 10th, 2020. Can you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have 3 presentations this evening. Our first presentation is of the city's water pollution. Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
Oh, that's right. I'm ready to go tonight. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes. I have Councilwoman Banks is absent.
Is your mic on? We can't hear you.
There we go.
I have Councilwoman Banks is absent. I have Councilman Brightwell,
Here.
Councilman Hoskins.
Here.
I have Councilman Mandelbaum is absent. Councilwoman Morris,
Here.
Councilwoman Taylor,
Here.
and Council President Cruz.
Present. All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. So again, we'll go now into our presentations. First one being the city's water pollution control effects. Mr. Administrator.
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like Dr. Maria Calhoun to come up to the podium. She has a PowerPoint to present this evening. Just by way of background, the city bonded for $38.3 million to install sanitary sewers in part of the city where none previously existed. This was in 1999. To help repay the bond, residents and businesses are charged a fee to tap into the city sewer system. Gradually, property owners tied into the city sewers. However, roughly just under 1,000 properties still remain on septic today. In 2016, the city stepped up efforts to have more property owners connect to the city sewers. Property owners with properly functioning septic systems are allowed to remain on septic system. Property owners with failing systems are initially informed that they have to connect to city sewer. For the safety of the residents and visitors, the Southfield Building Department declared dwellings uninhabitable if the septic system was not working and raw sewage was spilling out of their property. I want to emphasize no one has been removed from their home the entire time we've been doing these enforcement activities. I also, prior to Dr. Calhoun starting, I'm going to circulate the letters that we currently send out to all property owners. I am frequently asked, why did we step up the enforcement in 2016? As you'll see in the PowerPoint, prior to 2016, this actually started in the late 90s, and we had Oakland County under contract. 2016, we were monitoring actions of the federal government, particularly the EPA. We also had started our SAW grant, our sanitary and water management program, and we saw early deterioration of the system because there was not enough flow in the system. As we've been going through that asset management, we make sure that we are jetting and cleaning the system, and we designed a system to have a certain amount of capacity. That capacity is yet to be fulfilled some 20 years later. In addition, I want to remind Council that the genesis of these funds was federal dollars to the state of Michigan, and the city of Southfield borrowed these monies through our water department, through the Michigan MDQ at the time, now Eagle, through the state revolving loan program. I'm going to let Maria take you through the PowerPoint, and at the end I'll have a few other comments.
Good evening. Fred kind of gave you a brief overview of what we'll be discussing, so let's just get right into it. My name is Dr. Maria Calhoun, and I am the Code Enforcement and Community Appearance Manager. City leadership recognizes that although septic maintenance is an individual property owner concern, failure to properly maintain systems could result in a public health concern. Our purpose here this evening is to provide an update and information to the septic inspection program. Administration thought that it might be a good idea to provide some history regarding past practices as well. With that being said, I believe that the good starting point is 1998. The direct benefit loan program was approved in 1998 to assist owners with the connection to the newly installed sewer system by approval of ordinance number 1433. The original tap fee was somewhere around $6,900 and was designed to gradually increase. Prior to 2017, the rate was $7,706. As Mr. Zorn stated, the city contracted with Oakland County until 2009 to conduct septic inspections for a sum of around $100,000 per year. The contract was not renewed because the city was largely dissatisfied with the level of service because we were not provided results, so there was no clear manner to determine what actions were actually taken. Economic conditions unfortunately played a factor in the inspection process as well. However, administration realized that the city needs to be in compliance with state law, as well as a potential environmental impact of not having an inspection program. So in 2016, the Southfield Septic Inspection Program was developed. Going back a bit to 2010, the city established a revolving loan fund, as Mr. Zorn stated, in the amount of around $750 in response to MDEQ requirements. And I know that Mr. Zorn has some other concerns or things that he'd like to discuss with regard to that $750,000 loan as it currently stands. Even though there was no active inspection program, residents continued to request to connect to city sewer services. At that time, there were approximately 2,500 property owners who we believe were still utilizing private sewage disposal systems. As previously stated, the city's inspection program began in 2016. We send out notice requirements as well as packets that include loan information and an evaluation checklist. I'd like to take just a moment to kind of explain what the evaluator is looking for. Some property owners may not understand that even if a system is functioning, that it may not be functioning properly. Some signs of failure would be the following. Let me go back a little bit to just let you know what the inspector is actually looking for. They're looking to identify the size and condition of the septic tank, to determine the level of effluent in the septic tank prior to any pumping, to pump out the tank, and to identify any evidence of failure. Failure would mean any of the following: a discharge of sewage to the surface of the ground, a discharge of sewage or effluent into surface water or directly into groundwater, an inability of the system to accept sewage at the rate it is being discharged, a structural failure of the tank or its associated parts. It could also be a discharge of treated wastewater that does not comply with applicable standards, an illegal connection to the system or illegal discharge from the systems, or evidence of effluent in the tank above or below the invert or of the outlet. Imminent danger would be anything that may cause death, disease, or serious physical harm that cannot be remedied either immediately or before the damage can be eliminated through routine enforcement procedures. And as Mr. Zorn discussed, we did not have any properties that resulted in an imminent danger that we were unable to deal with. As Mr. Zorn stated, no one was forced out of their home as a result of an inspection process. I'm going to turn the remainder of the program over to Ms. Beeks, who's going to talk about some of the background of available loan programs and their history, as well as some of the current program statistics.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In the fall of 2011, Southfield's sewer loan program was broadened to include financial assistance for water installations to property owners expressing a desire to convert from well water. In the following summer, the sewer and water service loans were revised and unified. There are now 4 sewer water connection loan programs: the tap permit loan, the contractor loan, the water service connection loan, and the Southfield Home Improvement Well and Septic Loan, also known as SHIP-WAS. In order to tap into the sewer line, property owners must first secure a tap permit. The tap permit fee is approximately $5,000 per property. The tap permit connection loan offers financial assistance to cover the cost of the permit. The contractor loan offers property owners financial assistance to cover the cost of sewer installation. The water service connection loan offers financial assistance to cover the cost of water installation. These 3 loans are payable over 18 years. The first 3 years allows for interest-only payments, with the remaining balance at 3% interest annually.
And I believe that Mr. Zorn actually was going to discuss the length of the loan program as well with regard to the 18-year term at some point.
Obviously, this program has a long history. I'll share with you on August 27, 2009, I was having dinner with my predecessor, Jim Charette, going through the hiring process, and we had a very long conversation about what he dubbed the dirty dozen and the filthy 50. These were sewers that had failed to the point to where we literally had toilet paper percolating out of them. And we also, at that point, 2009, we had been 10 years into a program and candidly made very little progress in getting these connections to happen. We had Oakland County Health Department under contract. If we had 1,800 homes in a 3-year window by ordinance, we should have been doing about 600 homes a year. Well, I have had homeowners come in and show me their letters where they've had their inspections done every 3 years. That was not the case throughout the community. Many people, simply did not have their systems checked. Oakland County Health Department was not capable of keeping up with the volume, nor were they providing the reports back to the building department, who failed and who passed. We knew we had some issues, and I touched earlier, 2009-10, we made a couple things. Prior to this, there was a fee called Ready to Serve. If you were not on the sewer system, you paid a higher water rate because a system had been built for you to connect. That was eliminated in 2010 by council had approved that. Part of the reason, when you looking back and having been with the community at that time, the rationale was the water department was well funded. But we also had a substantial period where the water department wasn't investing in its system. And in about 2014, that changed. We started rebuilding our infrastructure to decrease the number of water main breaks, relining sanitary sewers and such. The original plan was for each person to pay $7,000 for a tap fee. That should have generated roughly $15 million towards debt retirement. That wasn't happening. In October of 17, that fee was decreased to $5,000 to help people out. The loan programs were set up. I just want to go back to those 3 reasons. And why did we start enforcement in 2016? We were rebuilding our own infrastructure. We had passed the bond in 2014 in section 30, in the John Grace neighborhood. I'm drawing a blank on the section number. 31, thank you. In section 31, we were in a very aggressive mode of replacing, remilling, and repairing a lot of the sewer and the water lines and the streets. And we started there with the enforcement activity. We worked with code, and I will tell you, code has had one tough job. It's never easy telling people what they have to do. None of us like to be told what we have to do, especially things that are expensive. In this room, we've heard numbers batted around from $30,000 to $60,000. We can show you the loan records. The average is about $13,500.
How much was
that
that?
is,
I'm sorry. How much did you say?
the average is about $13,500.
Okay.
Where it gets complicated are homes with walkout basements that sometimes have to be replumbed because the home where the sewer would connect is actually lower than our connection. so they usually need to put in a grinder pump to move the waste upstream to pump it up. Those are a little bit more challenging, but that's more of an anomaly.
Right.
I think we've only had a couple approach the 30,000.
Maybe 3.
3 out of all that we've done. So there's been this, I've heard people say 60,000, and I've said, will you please show me where? And again, myself and all of our, my staff, we recognize $7,000 is a lot, $5,000, it's a lot of money. But just like if your garage door falls off your house, or if you are connected to sewer and your sewer collapse, that is the responsibility of the homeowner to where you connect to the city. I think the city has been very creative in what we've done in creating these loan programs. I think I've shared with some of the council members earlier this year at the request and coordination of State Senator Jerry Moss. I had a conversation with 2 fairly high individuals at now Eagle. At that time, I think they were just announcing the name change from Michigan Department of Environmental Quality to Eagle. The part of that conversation, we always ask, and we asked during the stimulus, and I'm going to remind you, during the stimulus in 2010, the largest period of federal money ever coming into just about every program got funded. We had conversations, Gary mentioned, former Department of Public Works Director and I had conversations, could we get money to help people connect for that, what is considered that private? And the response from MDQ at that time was, the city has a revolving loan, which those are federal monies, and we got the standard response. The connection from your home to the sewer is a private function. In my conversation earlier with the representatives this year from Eagle, the conversation was, here's what we're doing. We've set up this loan program. If you're income eligible, it is interest-free and deferred until point of sale of the home. We've recently, working through our chore program, have set up, again, if you're income eligible, where the inspection, chore is now paying for the inspection. It's my understanding that inspection usually includes a pumping or a cleaning out of the septic tank and then the inspection. The other program that council has set up is, it seems about every 12 to 15 months, we have a person who's still on a well, who they're learning their well has failed and that the fecal count is way too high. And it's usually a byproduct of having your septic system on top of your water supply. And when we talk about this, this is why we've dubbed it septic to sewer, but the original genesis of this program was a water pollution control program about keeping our waterways clean and protecting our groundwater. We hear all summer long on the radio how Lake St. Clair is shut down. In the next couple of years, there will be a dialogue about a large storm basin being built near 8 Mile with the tune of about a $30 million expenditure to hold more storm water for part of the community. So, I think Southfield has done a good job with this. It's never easy telling anyone what we do. I believe that myself and all of my staff are respectful, polite, and courteous to people. Right now, there are 35 cases going through our court system. We work through every one of those cases. In the majority of those cases, there are people who simply, after 3, 4, 5 letters, haven't responded. And we work and get real creative. I mean, we recognize that people are going through health crises, spouses die, and people lose employment. And we work and hold a lot of hands in that process. And the city attorney's office has done a really good job. And the judges really hold our feet to getting to a resolution. But we try to get to a resolution before we have to ever issue a ticket. And Maria or Therese, if you want to give an example.
As Mr. Zorn stated, that is correct. We do try to make every effort to resolve matters before they get to court. And the standard time frames, we say 30 days to respond, 45 days. It is more so communication. Obviously, we have to gauge the situation based on the individual circumstances of each property owner. And sometimes it is a significant amount more time of that. But the issue that gets people into trouble is that we don't know what your circumstances are, and they fail to respond. So that is usually the only way that people will end up in court. If they have unique circumstances, obviously we're going to work with them to resolve it, because the goal is to resolve the concern, not to take people to court or to have to inconvenience people further.
You know, Mr. President, again, we strive to always be polite and respectful, and I don't know if Ms. Harris or Ms. Jackson is here tonight, but if we have been disrespectful, you know, please accept our sincere apologies. All of our residents matter. We don't know who lives in these homes, and we know the people and the family living in all of these homes are having very different life experiences. And we're here to help if given the opportunity, and I think Dr. Calhoun said that very well. When it's articulated and communicated, we get real creative. And I've seen the guys up in the ship office and the building department you know, sit and come up with solutions, and then they look at prices. How can we get a better price? Because that's the other thing, is we're not just willy-nilly. This is taxpayer money, and these homeowners are being asked to pay it back eventually. So you want to get the most value. We reduced that tap fee in October. We have one of our contractors, we've extended unit pricing from one of our contractors, IALE, to do that. The difficulty in that is IALE does the underground digging. It's the plumbing and the connection to the house that's usually the challenge. You want to comment about some of the contractors doing work, Maria?
We have probably 8 contractors that are actively engaged, and their pricing is pretty similar. There are some that perform services that the others don't, such as a dewatering, and as the mayor mentioned in Section 31, unfortunately, that's a common problem where they have higher water tables. So unfortunately, that is where the expense seems to creep up, and can be anywhere between $4,000 and $6,000 additional dollars for the property owner. But again, there are approximately 8 contractors who are responsive, and they work very well with the city in just trying to make sure that people are treated fairly.
And we don't select the contract?
No.
The homeowner has the final
That is
say
correct. We give
over
them
that.
a list, and we give them a disclaimer. We're not recommending any of those folks. You can use whoever you choose. If you have someone, an excavator or a plumber who is licensed to perform the work, then certainly you're free to use that individual. But it's just kind of something to get people started in the right direction. It is a process that most of us would not know anything about, so people are appreciative of having information to at least get started. I wanted to note that we have changed the conversation with regard to the letters, and I got a Christmas card this year with somebody's inspection results in it. So we're doing a good job in changing the conversation. People are understanding the tone and the importance of doing this. So I thought I'd like to share that.
Okay. Does that complete the presentation, or we have more?
We have more. As Mr. Zorn mentioned, the 4th and final loan is the SHIP WAS loan. The SHIP WAS loan is a 0% interest loan program for income-qualified homeowners, funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, through the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program. A SHIP WAS loan can cover the cost of a tap permit, the sewer connection by contractor, and/or water service. The total cost of installation is covered at 0% interest and is due only during the legal transfer of ownership of the property. This past fall, city administration approved the allowance of SHIP loans to cover the cost of the septic evaluation for homeowners who meet the income guidelines. And the average cost of an evaluation by a licensed professional can range from $250 to $350. So we have financial assistance available for that as well. There have been some changes to the loan program. In December 2017, Southfield City Council enacted Ordinance 1684, reducing the cost of the tap fee to $5,000. The reduction was retroactive for property owners who connected to the sewer system after January 2016. Again, the tap permit connection loan offers financial assistance in covering the cost of tapping into the city's sewer line. This loan is payable over 18 years. The first 3 years allows for interest-only payments with the remaining balance at 3% interest annually. From April 2016 to December 2018, the city mailed approximately 1,150 notices to property owners, requesting a current written evaluation of their septic system. In the interim, 131 property owners were granted loans to connect to the sewer system. From October 2018 to present, over 130 properties have connected to the sewer system. Some of these properties connected prior to receiving notices from the city. Other property connections were funded by the property owner, the city's 3% loan program, or the Ship Was loan program. There are currently approximately 915 properties using septic disposal systems in Southfield. And this concludes our presentation. We thank you. Are there any questions?
All right, council, any questions? Mr. Brightwell?
Mrs. Owen, obviously this is a health and safety issue, and I know it's been a concern for many years, and we obviously have some individuals who are fairly who are pissed off about it. But from a standpoint, I talked to the head of the civil engineering department with Lawrence Tech early in 2019. At what point will we can, I know it's a health issue, and I know stuff can bubble up and it can come out of the yard and kids can play in it. At what point do we, as a city, from a responsibility standpoint, can we condemn a home based on the activity of their septic system, just from a health and safety standpoint? Because I'm thinking about, obviously, neighbors may have grandkids or kids, and they wander across the street, across the lawn or something of this nature. What is the final say-so with respect to health and safety from the city standpoint?
Obviously, you're hitting it right on the head. This is about public health and safety, and that's why we do the inspections every 3 years. That's why in 2016, it was absolutely critical that we get through a full cycle and continue to do that every 3 years. You're ensuring that that public health and safety is met by having that inspection done every 3 years. As a reminder, and has been noted in the presentation, homeowners can stay connected, can continue to use their septic system as long as it passes every 3 years. If it doesn't pass, they have the option to rebuild their system or to connect to the city system.
Okay, I'm just trying to get to the point where we will be forced to do something because of the public health and safety of the surrounding environment. Do we have authority to condemn something and say you gotta do this?
The actual authority lies at the county level in both Washtenaw and Wayne County. At point of sale, you have to connect. I don't think Oakland and Macomb County are there yet. And given where the EPA is at, we seem to be in a period of less aggressive enforcement. One might say it's been rather lax. The same time, enforcement comes with a price to private individuals as well as a community. So there will come a point where there will be a mandatory hookup. I don't know when that'll be, but that'll be a decision the Oakland County Water Resource Commission will need to make. And I can tell you the conversations with the people at Eagle, they're trying to figure this out. This is part of the state as well as the nation's infrastructure crisis. I mean, we're spending millions of dollars to keep our waterways clean, and we still have fecal material still landing Lake St. Clair, Detroit River, other places. Downstream, we're dealing with a phosphate issue. Just kind of future actions. The administration would like to have a conversation with council about the loan program and the interest-only portion, and if that could happen at some point this spring. The other is obviously, as part of our legislative agenda, what we communicate to our friends in Lansing and such. I mean, the folks at Eagle were really impressed with our loan programs and what we're doing to help people out. I had communicated, those programs cost dollars and they have to be capitalized. We will be looking for additional dollars to capitalize both the SHIP water and sewer program, as well as additional dollars for the septic. I mean, if everyone were to come to us for a loan with rough math, 1,000 people at $13,000, we got a $13 million challenge in how that gets financed. And I have some ideas how that debt could support itself with the interest rate that's being charged if we find ourselves in that position. But we're 3 years into this. Hopefully council will support us to continue to do this level enforcement as required with the ordinance. The other the other action will funding for additional money into the CHOR program for helping these people out. The average inspection runs us $700, and those are very limited and precious dollars as well.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
I'm fine.
Anything else? Yes, Ms. Morris.
Yes, through the chair. To the city administrator, did I hear you say that no one has had to be removed or have lost their home as a result of this program, correct?
Of this program, no one has been removed for their home and told they could not occupy. Homes have been tagged, when warnings are completely, but no one has been removed from their home. To my knowledge, the last 3 years worth of tax foreclosures, no one lost their homes because of a septic loan.
Okay, thank you. And then these letters here, are these the revised letters? I know that there was some changes made.
That is correct. Those are the revised letters. We, under the direction of council, removed the language with regard to court action under the initial notices to property owners to kind of soften the tone. However, the final notices, if we get to that point, I discussed with Mr. Zorn, we have to discuss consequences. If you fail to respond, then the next logical step is that you will have to appear in court to basically abate the concern. So the first few letters are of a softer notion, and they say, thank you for responding to our consideration, and please let us know how we can help you. Mm-hmm. But subsequent notices are a little bit more harsh because you need to tell people that there are consequences for failure to respond. So later notices still include that language.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Mr. President, as those letters are written, we run them by the city attorney's office, community relations, and then our code office team. We actually put it's almost a committee writing the letter, a lot of eyes looking at it and trying to make sure we're presenting and, not be, bullying people.
Okay. Ms. Taylor?
Yes,
Appreciate
I
that.
have two questions. First, if someone uses a contractor other than the suggested list, do they have to be registered with the city of Southfield?
They don't have to be registered, but they have to be licensed through through any county within the state.
Okay, so is there a permit they have to pull to show their
Yes.
license? Okay,
That's
all right. And secondly, through the chair, I didn't hear the reasons why we started doing the notices in 2016.
I'm sorry?
In 2016, we started doing the notices for the inspections.
In 2016, we were watching enforced EPA actions. There was a number of communities in Ohio where they were holding administrative and elected officials in contempt of federal court. I mean, there were court orders in there about doing these things, and the particular communities said, no, and the EPA was going through very aggressive enforcement actions. And again, that's all about protecting public health and safety. We were making our infrastructure investments in our communities. 2014, we adopted the road millage. We were out rebuilding systems. Really, it's when neighborhoods see investment happening, streets being rebuilt, new water mains, they see that, it pushes and encourages folks to, hey, I'm going to put a new roof on my house, or, you know, maybe it's the time to make that connection. The city's making a commitment. They're not going quietly into the night. Then we saw, as we were administering the SAW grant, the sanitary and water grant that we received $2 million from the state of Michigan as part of our asset management, we saw early signs of deterioration in the system, and that's simply because we did not have enough volume. We had basically a piece of the system that cost just under $1 million on Lois Lane, and only one person had connected to it. And the last few years, we've hit that tipping point where our sewage bill is actually greater than our water bill from the Great Lakes Authority. And when you look at the part of your system that's going to increase the most in operational costs, it'll be your sewage system. And then in 2016, we were making that commitment when we dropped the ready-to-serve fee in 2009, as well as even the decision to drop the fee on the 7,000. We were building a water system that was well capitalized. In 2009, I can recall a conversation that we had too much money in the system. You know, let's get out there and start rebuilding this, and that's what we started doing in 2014.
Okay. Thank you for this presentation, and I really appreciate all the information. One last thing, if any of the residents have questions or concerns or things that may not be clear or that they want to ask in addition to what you have here, who can I direct them to?
You can direct them to either myself or Senior Code Enforcement Officer Therese Speaks.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. President, this is, like, the code enforcement team has done a phenomenal job with this. The building department, legal, this has not been an easy program to set up, but we're doing the right thing, and it comes with a price sometimes.
All right. Got one. Mr. Haskins?
Thank you guys for this presentation. I just kind of want to go back to your meeting with Eagle and some of the legislative options that you might have. I got the sense that some of that is dealing with appropriations, and right now we're in the budget season in Lansing, and also this came up last term, creating a statewide septic system, and there were a number of issues that popped up partly because of the cost of implementing that. So I'm just curious, what were some of those things that, with your discussions with Eagle, that came up legislatively?
Clear enabling legislation to do the things we're doing. And I think those are very easy things to do. I would clearly argue public purpose and public health and safety as to why we're doing those things, but it's always nice when, you know, when Lansing gives us the authority to do it.
All right. Well, Dr. Calhoun, thank you for the presentation and for your team and your work that you've done. We took a little extra time on this topic this evening, but it's a topic worth discussing a little longer, and we definitely wanted to be televised so those at home could hear what's going on with this too, because there's all kind of conversations. So I hope this brought clarity to folks that were asking questions about, you know, what types of things are going on right now. Yes, Ms. Taylor.
Could we have a copy of the presentation?
Yeah, that would be great, yeah.
Is email appropriate?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from the Planning Commission, the 2019 Annual Report.
Thank you. I'm going to pull up the presentation, and Mr. Steve Huntington, our Planning Commission Chair from last year, is going to join me up at the podium.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're here tonight to present the Planning Commission Annual Report for 2019. This is required by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act of 2008 as amended, and it states that a Planning Commission shall make an annual written report to the legislative body concerning its operations and the status of planning activities, including recommendations regarding actions of the legislative body related to planning and development in the future. A copy of the report is included in your packet. This is also a requirement of being redevelopment ready certified. Again, to my right is Mr. Stephen Huntington. He's been on the Planning Commission for over 10 years. He served as chair last year, so we asked him to make an introduction of the commissioners that are here tonight. Mr. Huntington.
Thank you, City Council. Thanks for having us here tonight. Don't worry, we'll keep it brief. We had a really good year, a really busy year. I would like to take the time to introduce the commission. If you hear your name, stand up, let everybody know you're here. Commissioner Mia, Commissioner Griffiths, Commissioner Culpepper, Commissioner Denson, Commissioner Martin, and Commissioner Willis. Okay. This is the Planning Commission. We had a really busy year last year, and I want to thank the City Council for working so well with the Planning Commission. You know, you get a lot of these petitioners that come in with these plans that look great, beautiful pictures, sounds good, and you start looking at the blueprints and start asking questions, and all of a sudden this great project is not that great. But we just don't throw them out the door. We try to turn it into a great project. You know, many times it entails sending them back to the drawing board 2 or 3 times, but eventually we get it right. You know, they're willing to work with us and make the changes as necessary. We appreciate the residents to come in and give their opinions and concerns, because that all helps in the decision making. Last year was a very busy year. We had 7 rezonings processed. We had 9 land use cases processed. We had 13 site plans processed. We have 4 ODD rezoning processed, and we had 31 planning commission meetings. Okay.
And as part of the report, we also had other items that we studied above and beyond our actual reviews, which included a number of zoning ordinance amendments. Working with planning staff, we did inventory of the non-motorized transit, pathway, and gateways. We worked on regulations for medical marijuana facilities and ongoing Northland redevelopment and streetscape elements. As far as initiatives for 2020, we continue to work on the Sustainable Southfield Master Plan implementation. As I stated at your study session, there were 20 goals and 241 tasks, and we're about 99% complete. The Capital Improvement Plan will be presenting before the Finance Committee and the Council this spring. Zoning Ordinance Technical Review. And one of the new initiatives that was submitted by the Commission is to work on housing and transportation options for seniors who have mobility challenges, and we're working closely with COSA on that. And then just as a brief overcap, the total development is estimated at $87 million that was reviewed last year. That included the 2,100 permanent seats that was constructed at Lawrence Tech. Truck Light headquarters is under construction currently at the northeast corner of Civic Center Drive and Northwestern Highway. Tomorrow, Star Academy Daycare, which took over a former residential building. We did have a skilled nursing center proposed on Lower Evergreen, which is not moving forward for financial reasons. We had 2 building expansions. We had 2 demolitions that resulted or will result in new construction. One is the Losser Road Mikvah, as well as a brand new prototype Comerica Bank on Telegraph Road. additional adaptive reuse or expansions at Marathoma Church, and a former office building that was been vacant for many years on Telegraph Road. We had the Brooks Barn, our first regulated small event venue, and then recently the council has just seen the 80,000 square foot R&D expansion at Galleria, and hopefully the attraction of 1,800 new jobs. We're currently reviewing Yeshiva Beth Yehuda, a third-story addition, and last month you approved 2 new hotels on Northwestern Highway adjacent Red Pool Park, which will total about 225 new hotel rooms. And then finally, we're just working on the final stages that you have approved is Northland Units 2 and 3, which includes a 30,000 gross square foot fitness center and a proposed 12 to 15,000 square foot retail. And then finally, Farmbrook Apartments is on hold, but we did spend a lot of time reviewing that. So with that, if the council has any questions, that's our formal presentation. The details are in your packet, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, Mr. Brightwell.
Terry, I was looking through the material in our package, and it might be self-explanatory, but what is a non-motorized transit inventory? What is that?
Well, if you recall, we did the presentation under your study session where we reviewed all 300 bus stops throughout the city to determine if there was key walks or other types of facilities, and then we came up with the scoring and prioritization for future capital improvements. So non-motorized is literally what it means, bicycles, walking, so forth, and then the public transit study reviewed the bus stop conditions throughout the city.
Okay, so we took an inventory of the bicycles that are stationed around.
We have an inventory of the bicycles, but more importantly, the routes and the bus stop locations. By having the bicycles, it expands the ability of people to use public transit to get to work or their home or to school. So that was all part of our inventory.
Okay. All right, so, okay.
That was presented at your last study session.
Yeah, I remember that about the bus stops, but when I think about buses, I think about motorized. That, to me, that automatically.
Many of them are equipped now with bicycle racks so that it expands the ability. Typically, someone will walk a quarter mile on either side of a bus route. By having the bicycle, it expands that to 1 mile of accessibility.
Oh, okay, well, I won't beat this to death. That's enough. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Council, anything else? I just want to say, and I think I speak for all of us in thanking Mr. Huntington and the whole team of commissioners here. I see everybody on here that I saw is our people I see everywhere doing something around this city, and we appreciate your service and the time and your commitments. And of course, with Mr. Crowe working as a liaison to us here in the city. So we thank you for the presentation, and I think we're all set. If there's anything else. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, got one last presentation, the Q Alert presentation.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Tonight I'd like to talk about our CRM, our Customer Request Management Software, or why we are moving from C-Click-Fix to Q Alert. As you know, we went live with C-Click-Fix 6 months ago, handled a little over 400 requests through it, and we started our 6-month review in January, including input from residents who use the system and our managers. Our managers are employees who handle requests through C-Click-Fix, either assigning it or entering it for them. First, there are a lot of things we liked about C-Click-Fix. We love the app with the photo and geolocating, so there's never any question of what the problem is or where it's located. We like the independent record of what's said and what's reported when, so there's never any confusion as far as what happened or what we did or what we said we'd do. Some things we don't like. First of all, standard C-Click-Fix has 20 licenses for city users, employees. And that's just not enough. It sounds like a lot for a city our size, but once you take the people who input the complaints, the people who handle the complaints, management, administration who oversees it, make sure it's running smoothly, and IT to make sure it's physically working, that's just not enough for us. And we have departments that don't have any licenses, and those come to me, and then I send them out to the department, and the department sends it back. C-Click-Fix will send us or sell us more licenses, 10 more, for $9,000. That's double the cost of C-Click-Fix then. So for us, that's not practical. There's also no way to geo-assign tasks. So for instance, Dr. Calhoun might want a complaint coming right to the code officer who works that area. That's not possible right now. C-Click-Fix says they'll do that in a year, but then of course when we do that, we're probably going to need 10 more licenses. So there we've tripled the cost of C-Click-Fix. Another thing that we don't like is there's no branding really. People use C-Click-Fix to fix a complaint in Oak Park and everywhere. But is it really C-Click-Fix? No, it's us. And we think Southfield should be represented. It's our taxpayers fixing those issues. So we think it should say Southfield. Now C-Click-Fix will do that for you for a few more $1,000s every year. So all these things came together, and combine that with weak automation, because that's what CRM is, really. CRM takes the minute details out of dealing with requests for service and handles them and allows you to focus on the qualitative aspects of getting the job done right. Well, C-Click-Fix is weak in that area compared to all the other CRM software that's available to cities. Finally, the one thing that especially our managers don't like about C-Click-Fix is the social media aspect. Most CRM software, it's you, the resident, to us, the city, and we're working together to solve the problem. With C-Click-Fix, it's you, the city, and whoever happens to go by on the internet wants to throw in their comment, and when it comes to things of that nature, that does not work well. We've seen arguments in neighborhoods where people have posted things anonymously, complain about go-karts, but then someone knows who they are, and before you know it, there's all sorts of nastiness going on. And this social media aspect sometimes unfairly leaves the city not looking its best, our employees, our neighborhoods, or even the residents. Think about it. When you put in a request, I talk to people on the phone, and they come in up here emotionally. But when they're done, we're down here. We understand each other. We're going to address the problem. But the problem with C-Click-Fix is right here. This is memorialized forever. And maybe you said some things in ways you didn't intend to. It's still there. That's one of the problems with C-Click-Fix, one of the things we don't like. So we started looking. We looked at programs like GoGov, Public Stuff, and Q-Alert. And Q-Alert really came out on top. First of all, everyone has the app, pretty much. So that's not a big thing. We can get that. Q-Alert has that. They also have geolocating already. They have unlimited licenses. That's a big thing to us. So it doesn't matter how many people we need. We can just assign new licenses to employees, and there'll be no question about that. It has geographic assignments already. Combine that with the unlimited licenses, and now we can work much more efficiently and effectively. It has Southfield branding. People will be using Q-Alert, but they won't see South Q-Alert. They will see Southfield Solutions or whatever we decide we want to represent us in that manner. Finally, the automation is just stronger. It's stronger and better. We like that a lot more. It's less time dotting the I's and crossing the T's and more time taking deep looks at requests for service or broad looks at everything to see how things are going. And that's what management should be doing, not the minuscule tasks. Q-Alert will do that for us. Q-Alert does a better job of getting information out to people with a knowledge base. Sometimes all people want to know is when's their trash pickup. Well, instead of entering that in, you just look and oh, it's Tuesday, that's fine. So that's helpful. Also, Q-Alert helps us get events out to people. So when they log into Q-Alert, they see a lot. They see some good things. They get their complaint, and we're going to address that. We're going to help them with that. But while you're looking at that, maybe there's something great at Parks and Rec that you should know about. And maybe you're going to see that. Next thing you know, you're here for a weekend event and getting your issue addressed. So those are some of the things we really like about Q-Alert. But Q-Alert has one added benefit that is unique. GFL uses Q-Alert. So now we get a C-Click-Fix complaint, and even though they're trending down as far as solid waste complaints, it's still 10% of the 400 we received. We get it, we email it to GFL. GFL puts it into Q-Alert, it instantly appears on an iPad from one of their employees, and we've always have a supervisor in town, they address it. So actually, we're kind of the slow part in GFL addressing their problems. They want us to go to Q Alert. This is going to be less work for us. It's going to be less work for GFL. And more importantly, it's going to be more timely service for our residents in relation to GFL. In fact, GFL wants us to go to Q Alert so badly, they're picking up half the cost. Originally, Q Alert wanted us to recoup it from GFL, but we weren't willing to pursue that. So now our Q Alert is going to pursue that. Instead of a $19,000 program, it's going to be $9,900, which is just about what C-Click Fix work costs us without the added licenses we need. So it's a better product, it fits our needs better, integrates with another major service provider, and it's going to cost us less money.
Okay. Council, anybody have any questions, comments? Okay.
What does CRM stand for again?
It's customer request management.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move next to our meeting minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Brightwell?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole, January 6, 2020, the regular meeting minutes of January 13, 2020, and the regular meeting minutes of January 27, 2020.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Brightwell, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of January 6, regular meeting minutes of January 13, and regular meeting minutes of January 27. Are there any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. We'll now go to our next discussion topic on the cease and desist right of first refusal, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilwoman Morris to lead out on that discussion.
Yes, the reason this agenda item is here before you today, Council, is because I wanted to have a more formal and transparent and consistent method of reporting on the progress of this program. We talked about it in the Council President's meeting, and I believe maybe my desires were misrepresented. I do not wish to terminate the program. I just wanted to be an advocate for the program. It's a little embarrassing when residents ask you about certain things in the city and you can't speak intelligent on them. And as a council, we authorize the administration of this program. And so I do want to thank Mayor Siver. He did provide us with a high-level report on the activities of the program this past week in our packet. But the last time we got information on the program was in June of 2019. So I thought it'd be good. I know there were certain things that I would like to see reported out, and I didn't know if there were other things that other council members wanted to see as well. So that's why this issue is before us.
All right. Council have any other things after reading over the report or whatnot that we want to add, or is this, are we in favor of maybe a more constant reporting system?
Yes.
Is that, I mean, yes, go ahead, Mr. Brightwell.
I know I've seen the report and the detail is there. I would like to, is there a frequency, without putting undue hardship on anyone in this, can we improve the frequency, perhaps quarterly? We can get the report on a quarterly basis?
Certainly, we can move it from semi-annually to quarterly.
Okay, well, that will satisfy my requirement from just being on top of it.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Morris.
Yes, for me, I think that's great. Quarterly is fine. But I also wanted to have a little bit more detail in terms of the property locations, the addresses of the homes, the acquisition price, and then the sales price. I'd like to see that in the report.
You received all of the addresses because they're part of the Brownfield report. And during the first right of refusal in June.
I have not seen their addresses.
They were included each year in June in your, when you vote the first right of refusal, the addresses of the properties were listed.
This is the June report of 2019. There are no addresses.
No, I'm
They're
talking
parcels.
about the council action, not the report. I'm talking about the council action. When the council voted to take first right of refusal from the Oakland County Treasurer, your report that you voted on had those properties, the addresses.
I'm not familiar with that. What I'm asking is, when you go through each cohort, can you provide us with the acquisition price and the sales price of the property
Sure,
and the address?
we can do that.
Okay, that's all I'm asking for.
Okay.
Anything else on that? All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Brightwell,
I make a motion that we approve consent agenda items A through P.
support. It's been moved by Mr. Brightwell, supported by Mr. Hoskins, that we approve consent agenda items A through P. Are there any comments or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right. Consent agenda is approved. We'll now move on to public hearing. We have one public hearing this evening on the Brownfield plan for Southfield NRI.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you tonight? The city staff received a request from the Southfield nonprofit Housing Corporation Southfield Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative, LLC, otherwise referred to as NRI, to assist them with their fourth Brownfield project. The Brownfield Authority on January 3rd recommended approval of the Brownfield redevelopment plan, and we have a short presentation to go over this process, and I'd like to introduce Ms. Hardy from AKT Peerless to give us a presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you all know, the NRI is a nonprofit group. They were formed to provide housing facilities and generally improve the neighborhoods of the city of Southfield. Their strategy is to acquire properties that have been tax foreclosed upon, declare them as blighted. Blighted under the Brownfield Act means that the property is tax reverted or meets other definitions of blighted, including being a nuisance to children and other criteria. They then rehabilitate and/or demolish and then construct new buildings, new homes on these properties for the ultimate goal of creating new homeowners in the city, improving property values. And through this Brownfield process, tax revenues are also contributed to the Brownfield Authority's local Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund, which is used to fund additional Brownfield projects in the city. They've been working with Habitat for Humanity from the beginning. It's been a very successful partnership. They'll continue to work with Habitat for Humanity as the contractor. They also, Habitat for Humanity works with local real estate agencies and brokers to then sell the homes when they're completed. This fourth portfolio of properties that's included in the fourth Brownfield plan is 17 tax foreclosed properties in the city. The Brownfield environmental or Brownfield eligible costs include both environmental assessments and cleanup, as well as lead, asbestos, and mold surveys and abatement, demolition, site preparation, infrastructure improvements, which includes things like installing or repairing sidewalk in the public right-of-way, and the cost of preparing the Brownfield plan. The total estimated cost of these activities in the plan is $426,000. This is an estimate. It's a conservative estimate. It's a not-to-exceed estimate. As the project unfolds, the NRI group, and Habitat for Humanity tracks their actual incurred expenses for these activities, and that's what they are reimbursed.
I would just like to add that we do audit those receipts, so we do meet with them regularly to verify their documentation.
The project outcomes, as I mentioned before, are to remove blight throughout the neighborhoods of the city, increase property values, increase property home ownership in the city, and contribute again to the Brownfield Revolving Fund, which acts to further initiate projects and remediation throughout the city.
And I have one other addition, just to clarify. When we brought the Brownfield plan to the Committee of the Whole meeting on February 3rd, there was some additional properties that were identified in the plan. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board met again to remove some of the properties that were had been removed just through natural course of business. So we, from time to time, properties are purchased by the city, and then they're either just due to title issues or whatnot, they don't end up coming into our possession. So we did clean up the plan, just to make everything more tidy. At this time, we would request to have a public hearing on the plan.
All right. All right, then at this time, we'd like to open the public hearing. If anyone has anything to speak to this particular matter, you may come to the lectern and you'll have 3 minutes.
I just have 2 questions. Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. My first question is, did AKT Peerless have to bid to get this environmental contract, or were they gifted the bid due to the fact that they are the same environmental agency that's doing work with the city for the Northland project? That's my first question. And the second question is, does the city or the state or this type of project, is it required to have environmental insurance? And do we have it? Thank you. And I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Again, public hearing is still open. If there's anyone that, again, would like to speak to this matter, please come to the lectern. You'll have 3 minutes. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Council or Shelley, did you want to respond to that? Or
Sure. We enter into a personal service contract with AKT Peerless to assist us with our brownfield work. So they do submit a separate contract in order to assist us. And so they're representing the city of Southfield to review the plan for us. Regarding insurance, the city, that is not something that's necessary for us. The owners of the property are required to do the brownfield abatements. The city is assisting to facilitate payment back to encourage redevelopment of properties, but we're not actually, they're not part of the city's property any longer, so we're not responsible for the environmental insurance for something like that.
okay.
Mr. President,
yes.
SNRI does have insurance on all of the single-family homes as well as commercial properties. On the commercial properties, we are actually picking up additional environmental insurance. We have some. I'll use, for example, a building on Mount Vernon and Greenfield. We're in the process of doing just under $30,000 in cleanup, but we are reviewing the level of environmental insurance we have on the commercial properties. And all of the homes have coverage.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions or comments?
I don't have any.
All right, well, thank you. So this will,
Approve the resolution, please.
okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Had a resolution.
Or is it?
I'm sorry, Shelley, does the brownfield have what we have with us? Does it have the correct properties? You said that some were removed?
Yes, the new brownfield plan was corrected to have the new properties. There was a couple of just, instead of stating 17 properties, there was just some cleanup language. And so I submitted that revised brownfield plan to the city clerk's office, and I will make sure that everyone has a clean copy of the document, but all the properties are correct.
I don't see it.
I don't know if the resolution was in there.
It should be in the letter that was attached in our item.
Recommendation.
It's part of our letter.
Suggested resolution. Council.
Oh, it's on that page.
Yeah. It's here on the back of the letter. They did double sided.
That's not the one.
So, yeah. It's the whole
At the end
resolution.
of Fred's letter.
Yeah, it's on the
it
back of
says
Fred's letter.
Recommendation recommended.
It's on the back.
You want us
Just
to
read
read
that.
the whole thing?
No, just that last
No, I think
portion.
just to approve the resolution as submitted.
Oh, recommendation, want us to do the recommendation? It is recommended that the following the public hearing, that your honorable body approve the brownfield plan for the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation's Southfield Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative LLC project using the attached resolution.
Thank you.
So that'd be sufficient.
Support.
All right, been moved by Ms. Taylor, supported by Mr. Brightwell, that we approve the resolution as presented for the brownfield plan for Project 2020 NRI. All right, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed?
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to communications. Now you just to read, please. Stop there. Again, since we discussed this, I think, in our study session, but about the statement as it relates to communications, just want to reiterate again, no speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall be abusive or use abusive or threatening language towards any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of a public meeting of the city council, and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. First request for recognition is Stacy Jackson.
Good evening. Stacy Jackson, Southfield, Michigan. I am usually not the first person to speak, but I guess given this subject matter, I guess it would be fitting that I am. I would like to start to say that I do appreciate seeing the beautiful PowerPoint presentation and the information. However, for me, it's still not enough. I also, through the chair to Mr. Zorn, appreciate the diplomacy of apologizing if I felt disrespected, but while I receive that, it's still not enough. You see, before the Jewish community came to you with their concerns for the mikveh, I was here. Before the 19 gas station owners came here to discuss ice boxes, I was here. Before Washington Heights came here about the school, I was here. Before the developer came before this council to ask for a parcel of land that anywhere else, everywhere else across this city is going for $99,000 to $100,000, but asked this council to give it to him for $5,000, and list the exact same price points pertaining to connecting to the city sewage that I have said for well over 12 months, but have it refuted by our appointed and elected officials. Well, I'm just not satisfied. My problem that I have is that I have not been heard. This presentation should not only be made available to the council, but it should be online for the residents. What we're missing is the general premise of this. The city dropped the ball. These same ordinances were not fairly, equally enforced across every resident with a septic tank spanning back to 1998. If so, 99% of the residents that were at Levy Middle School would have had some type of documented record of receiving something. None of us did. So what I want to know is, beyond this fluff of political damage control, what really is this council going to do for me and the residents that I represent? See, the fluff is not enough for me. The fact that this council or someone within it can say that they did not know who lived in the homes, well, that's hogwash. The census tells us that. In fact, there are public records that show that back in 1998, when Oakland County actually did a full investigation, over 50% of the septic tanks were failing then. Why did they not connect? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Keith Harris.
How you doing today? All race and life matter. P.O. Box 2769, 48037. You know, when I come to this counter, I come with passion, not anger. When I come to this counter, I really try to articulate myself the best way as possible without being rude, threatening, or indignant. But as a black man, if the police pull me over today and I say, "Why you pull me over?" he's going to take my strong masculine voice as a threat, same way this council do. And he's going to feel intimidated, especially a white cop. Since I've been living in this city, I've been harassed. I done had death threats, bomb threats on my home. I've done all the right things. No police officer investigated. And then when I got mad and actually called someone and didn't make a threat but used bad language, I wind up with 12 or more white cops at my door to arrest me for abusive use of the telephone, overkill. Now, every time I tell this story in a church or whatever, they say, "Who was the judge?" I say, "Sheila Johnson." I say, "Who signed the warrant?" "Arvon." Everybody say, "Of course." That ignorance is quite obvious in the courts in Southfield. The things that happens in this city to us is unacceptable, Don. Everything is unacceptable. Now you got a rule where we can't say the mayor's name. We can't use the name of the people who victimize us. This is Black History Month. You don't take our rights away, you give us more. We're supposed to get more. I work very hard to provide for my family. And when that white cop and them busted up in my house with my 11-year-old son, that post-traumatic stress will never leave me. It will never leave me. What's been done to Toby will never leave Toby. And come Juneteenth, we're going to be prepared, and we're going to do it the right way. And yes, we're going to put on a show. We're going to put on a show, and we're going to let white people know, we're going to let the 46th District Court know that no more will we take this abuse in Southfield. I use no language that Dr. King haven't used when I come here. And I try to do it the best way I can within my handicap. I do have a handicap. So I am going to apply for reasonable accommodations because sometimes I forget things fast. But I am asking this council, don't take away our rights. Give us more. Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Toby Rhodes. Our next request for recognition is Lewis Williams.
Lewis Williams, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I again would like to express my opposition to the plan to sell a portion of the Northland property to a marijuana grow business to sell medical marijuana. It concerns me that there, with all the negatives related to this, that we would even consider this. It's very concerning. There's a real likelihood of an increase in crime if we allow this business in our community. Also, the negative impact on property values that is likely to accompany this business in the neighborhood that it's put in. And also, there is a great deal of opposition in our community to this plan. I think it's safe to say that most people would not want a marijuana grow business in their neighborhood, medical or otherwise. If we're being honest, I think most of the council members would not want such a business in your neighborhood. I know I would not want it, and I say that very freely. Then the question is, if we don't want it, we shouldn't put it in anybody's neighborhood in our city. Another concern is that by having this business in our area, it would increase the likelihood of our young people being exposed to marijuana. I don't want anybody living anywhere thinking they can just they can somehow get a fake medical marijuana card and come to Southfield and get their marijuana. As I said before, Southfield, the family city, sounds good. Southfield, the all-American city, sounds good. But I don't want anybody calling Southfield the marijuana city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Sidney Coleman.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Sidney Coleman, 25360 McAllister Street, Southfield, resident since 1995. I'm a board member of the OVC, and our president is over here to our right. That's our association, just west of Telegraph. And we meet every first Thursday of the month. You're all invited to our meetings. But one thing I've brought up a few years ago was something about property taxes. And it's not how much we pay, but who we send our checks to. And I noticed that we send our checks to an individual. Now, I've owned like 5 houses in Oak Park, Detroit, Ferndale, as well as Detroit, and back in my hometown of Philadelphia. And all the tax bills are addressed to the city of Oak Park, Philadelphia, Southfield. And we talked about this issue, and no one seemed to come up with an answer on why it's done that way. And I thought about it and brought it up again this year, and I'm thinking, you know, this could open the city up in the future. And I'm not accusing any of our treasurers of anything in the past, but it could open up to fraud, possible, what if the treasurer is incapacitated and can't sign checks? So I'm wondering, just like our water bill is made out to the city of Southfield, why our tax bill and our assessment bill for my connection fee is not made out to the city of Southfield? I mean, we have an account, so why should an individual have millions of dollars essentially in their name? And I was hoping the council could address this and probably take some action towards changing it. Doesn't seem like a very difficult matter other than changing the bill itself, the printing on the bill. Thank you for listening and hope to hear from you.
Okay, well, I think you can hear from us today. We talked about this last week, and we do intend, if I recall correctly, to change it just to City of Southfield. So it will be changed, sir. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Pamela Gerald.
Councilwoman Morris, all you have to do is do a little research and read those packets. A lot of that information is in the packets. You know, I'm sick and tired of hearing people come before this lectern and talk about Michael Mandelbaum, Mayor Ken Siver, now Judge Arvant, and make this a race issue. We have some racial inequalities in the city, and I would like to think that everybody that's in any kind of administrative position is working on those issues. But when you flip the coin, you're only making matters worse. Now, I've got a bone to pick with you, Council President. You allowed a woman to come before this council, and this little statement that you read, I told the previous city attorney, it does not address a resident speaking about another resident. And you allowed that resident to call me and my husband by name, and you didn't stop her. When I went to tell what's the truth, that person was found guilty of mortgage fraud and owes a fine to the state of Michigan of $14,250, I had the proof. Every time this person comes before council and talk about Michael Mandelbaum and the mayor, you flop in your seat, you put your hand on your face, and I'm looking at you like this because you stopped me. But you can't seem to stop other people coming before this council attacking the non-African Americans. I'm beginning to think it's a little misogynistic stuff going on here because it always seems to be me, and I'm female, and not to the men that come before this podium. I don't even know why you read it when you sit there and you allow them to say it. Now, I've heard of the mayor and Mandelbaum allegedly stealing properties and benefiting. I haven't heard you talk about the overcharge in the city of Detroit, since you're a member of the National Action Network, and they know who I'm talking about the residents in Detroit that was overcharged $600 million on their property taxes, and it could exceed $795 million. I haven't heard that same person talk about the Wayne County Sheriff's Department illegally seizing cars for crimes that people did not commit. And here's a new thing. I want you to talk about this in your next speech. We've got businesses in the city of Detroit along the river excavating with no permit to do so. That's what I want to hear you talk about. Not stuff that's not true in Southfield.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next request for recognition is Greg Keeler. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Actually, our next request is Mr. Gerard Mullen. My apologies.
Good evening.
Good
Good evening.
My name is Gerard Mullen, Southfield Citizens Oversight Committee. Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037. Mr. Chairman, tonight I would like to talk about replacements. Replacements for future vacancies on this council. As you might know, the charter in section 11.5 gives council the power to fill all elective office vacancies with whoever you wish, as long as the replacements are qualified. In 2014, I came before this body, and I suggested that council fill a future vacant seat on council with the number one runner-up, that is, the candidate who placed fifth in the then 2013 council election. That way, the voters, and not you, the politicians, will then determine who fills vacancies on this council. Council apparently agreed with me when you folks filled Councilman Jeremy Moss's vacant seat with Dr. Cruz, Dr. Lloyd Cruz, the number one runner-up in the 2013 election. And then, a few months later, Council filled Councilman Ken Sivers' vacant seat with Michael Mandelbaum, who was the number two runner-up in 2013. Then, in 2017, you folks filled Councilwoman Joan Seymour's vacant seat with Lenny Taylor, the number one runner-up in the 2015 election. I hope that council continues with this enlightened policy by filling, if necessary, the next vacant seat with Donald Ficasi, the number one runner-up in the most recent council election. And in that way, the voters will determine who will fill vacant seats on this council in the future, and not you, the politicians. Thank you.
Thank you. Now our next request for recognition is Greg Keeler.
Greg Keeler, Southfield residents. The state of Michigan, statewide, does not have a septic code. So when the city inflict their code on the residents of the city of Southfield, that was of their own doing. It wasn't something that is statewide, there's one thing that is federal-wide. On September 18th, 2018, Septic Smart Week. This was stated. November the 6th, 2018, Septic Summit. This was also stated. So if someone would have went to these, they would have known there is no septic code or law or anything put there. So when you say these things, that's wrong. Next off, when Councilman Taylor asked the question, how many people have been evicted from their homes? Well, renters have been evicted from their homes. 6 from my street, because their houses were then knocked down, but they were put out beforehand. They were all hand eviction notices. The dorm was put there when a septic line looked like it was going to go on Circle Drive, and then once the dorm was approved, the septic line disappeared. So I just have some questionable behavior that has been going on here with this. Two, the other thing I want to speak about, that there have been at least 5 women who have walked up to me as far as the handicap parking, and as far as walking outside and not being safe outside of this building. We look at the upgrades for the safety of the inside of this building, but we don't look at the upgrades for the safety of the outside of the building. A woman having to walk a block away from here to get to their car is unsafe. A woman have to walk past a bush, which they don't know what's on the other side of it, with a light glaring in their eye, is unsafe. For me as a male, it's not a big problem. But for a female, that is unsafe. And for a handicap, that is unsafe. I wish you would address these issues. If you put a parking lot that was halfway up on the side of the lawn over here, you would be up further enough so that the ramp that you have built now that is not handicap approved would become handicap approved at that point, and which will make entrance and egress from this building much safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request for recognition is Harold Hill.
Honorable body, Harold Hill, Southfield resident. I stand before you to say that I'm proud to see that Governor Whitmer has pitched one of the largest funding increases in nearly 20 years to the public school systems. That's great to hear, because I know March the 10th, we have a ballot proposal for Southfield Public Schools to increase the millage, which will increase the taxes in Southfield. After close review of the millage, I have to say vote no to the school proposal as written. In Southfield, if we don't have affordable housing for our young adults and families to move to, there won't be any people to go to the public schools. We need to address the decline in the school enrollment, and we need to address some of the abandoned buildings. They have at least 4 schools that are sitting vacant. I'm proud to say, in Southfield, 6,213 students with 351 teachers. In Southfield, already well-funded. As a matter of fact, we're in the top 50 of funded school systems in the state, out of 855 districts. As a matter of fact, it says that because of the current funding, each student receives approximately over $17,000 versus $12,000 for the rest of the state. So just to give you a little information, the principal residence exemption was part of the general property tax, was amended by Proposal A in 1994 when Southfield residents willingly gave their tax exemptions to the school systems. We wanted to make sure that they're well-funded, and they are. We've been doing that since 1994, and we've been doing the same thing for quite some time without stellar results. So I must say that there's a change needed. And my suggestion is to vote no on the upcoming school proposal, because we need more people to be able to move to Southfield. It will lower the taxes because you will get your exemption. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it will also help our seniors on a fixed budget too.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we'll now move to the council portion of the meeting. Council, anyone have any comments? Yes, Ms. Taylor?
I will comment. First of all, I just want to once again remind everyone that February is Black History Month. We have a lot of activities going on within the city. Parks and Rec is very active in this. We had a movie on Friday night with a nice turnout. We had the movie 13, which was a documentary by Ava DuVernay. It was very good and very well attended. I also want to make mention that our Judge Sheila Johnson will be on the Rhonda Walker Show tomorrow morning as a featured guest, as being one of the first Black judges. So that might be something we might want to look at also. Also, again, the 2020 Census Committee is meeting regularly. There will be the kickoff is March 12th, and you'll start hearing or receive, the mailing will go out on March 12th. And then from March 12th to April 1st, I do believe, and I think Mayor Siver is going to talk a little bit more about this, but I just want to remind people that this 2020 census is coming. You will start receiving your mailers starting March 12th, so you can respond in 3 different ways, either by mail, online, or phone. But you'll hear a lot more about that as it comes up every week. Again, and there's a list of things here for Black History Month. I wasn't going to read all these, but I just wanted to mention the activities that Parks and Rec have, as well as take time to go look at the library. There's different portraits of all, on every level. You can spend some time in there. It really brings out the history and what each person has done. And I was very pleased to see a lot of people that we just normally don't hear about. So that was very nice and very exciting. So on March 15th, we have conversations and cocktails in the pavilion. I'm sorry, February 15th. I'm moving us along. And the Spirit of Harriet Tubman is on February 17th. We have Between the Lines, the Coloring Cafe on February 22nd. That'll be over at Beechwoods. And we also have the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers on February 28th from 6 to 9. That's just some of the things that Southfield Parks and Rec will be putting together. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Council? Yes, Ms. Morris?
I want to respond. A statement was made encouraging me to read my council packets to find information. And just a FYI, I do read the council packets. I get an opportunity to read them twice a week, one at the council president's meeting, and then when I get my packets on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything? All right. We'll move on to the mayor's portion.
All right. In the absence of Mr. Mandelbaum this evening, I have a few additional announcements, but I'd like to start, first of all, picking up where Ms. Taylor left off with the census. The committee is very active. There's over 30 people on our committee. We formed subcommittees, and we are beginning contacts with various entities in the city to enlist their support on getting the word out and making sure that everybody's counted in Southfield. One of the underreported areas where we had low response rate in 2010 were in some of our apartment complexes. So if a resident doesn't respond, then by April 1st, then an enumerator goes out from the census and knocks on doors. Well, in some of the apartment complexes, you can't get in because of security. Or we have people who, in some complexes, we haven't had cooperation from the management or the ownership. So we're making a concerted effort this time around to improve our response rate. And we will be contacting all of the managers of all 70-some apartment complexes in the city, and we're looking for their cooperation. So one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is that there are people in the audience as well as watching this either online or on cable. We are looking for our apartment residents to perhaps talk to the management, anything to encourage the participation. We do have a number of materials. I put some on your, at your place this evening. We have posters. In Southfield, everybody counts. We're hoping to get these into businesses as well as lobbies or mail rooms in apartment complexes or the management office. So I'm making an appeal to residents that we're coming with good intentions, but we would like to get into apartment complexes to make sure that people respond. Another thing that related to the census is the Census Bureau is really looking for, they need workers. And so I think I reported earlier that they have, because they had a low response in census workers, they have upped the pay from to $22 to $24.50 an hour. That's pretty good for a part-time job. And there is going to be a citywide job fair for the census. There are 2 dates, so anyone can show up. Of course, you can apply online, 2020census.gov/jobs, or you can go to our citywide census job fair. Now this job fair is just for census, 2020 census positions, but that's February 19th and February 22nd from 10 to 5 p.m. in the Southfield Public Library. Again, I'll repeat that, February 19th and February 22nd from 10 to 5 p.m. in the library. Moving on to three other things. First of all, earlier today, Business Development Director Rochelle Freeman and I attended the JETRO outreach for businesses in Metro Detroit. Half of the day was sponsored at Denso. JETRO is the Japan External Trade Organization. This button I'm wearing is their outreach symbol. Anyhow, they were in Southfield with a number of economic development people. Both Ms. Freeman and I encouraged them to look to Southfield for office space or to come and set up shop. And Denso, of course, served as a model of a Japanese company that is doing extremely well in Southfield. We have a wonderful partnership with Denso over the years. Moving on to, we also have coming up this Saturday is the next My Brother's Keeper lunch program, Lunch and Learn program. And that's Saturday the 15th from 11 to 1:30 in room 223 of Parks and Rec. The topics this week will be college admissions process, as well as reflections on Black History Month. Because lunch is served, the My Brother's Keeper Southfield chapter asks that you RSVP, and the number is 248-796-4503. 248-796-4503, and it's open to young men in the community, regardless of color, in middle school or high school. And then finally, may not seem like it with the snow we've had the last several days, but we are approaching skywarn season. In other words, tornado season. So I've been asked by Oakland County to share this information with the council and the public that the Saturday 1 p.m. Siren testing will start on Saturday, March 7th at 1 p.m. And then on March 25th, which is a Wednesday, that's the special weekday. They use it in the schools and businesses to, in case a tornado should hit, what do you do? Where do you seek shelter? And then along with that, the county has a program called Skywarn, and they're looking for volunteers. It's a little over an hour training, and these are people that they watch the sky, spot tornadoes, and report the sightings. So I'm going to repeat these at another meeting, but the first training is at 7 p.m. on March 4th up at the Oakland County Commission offices, 2100 Pontiac Lake Road, and then Saturday the 14th of March, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., same location. Again, this is simple training, and the volunteers have helped really save lives, save property, and keep us all safe. That concludes my report this evening. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Taylor, you had a couple of things.
I forgot to mention a couple of things, so thank you. Through the chair to Fred Zorn, would it be possible for us to put one of those signs on the door for recognition of Black History Month? Because I know we do it for cancer and all the other, that would be great. Also, I wanted to mention to Mr. Sidney, thank you for coming up tonight. We are working on a resolution, as Council President stated. We are waiting for our city attorney to put forth the language and present that to us. Oh, she has it. So she may be bringing that up under her portion tonight. So thank you again for that. I also wanted to ask if we were going to, as requested, put the septic tank again on the website. Can we ask Cable 15 to?
We'll put that PowerPoint out there. And,
okay.
Actually, we're working on a little video show as well.
Okay.
About a half hour.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are you gonna? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on. Anything else from administration this evening?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank council for their support on the 5 appointments and promotions this evening. And I'd like to congratulate Hanan Azu, who's now in the position of Deputy Director of Fiscal Services, the appointment of Virginia Robinson to the position of Human Resource Manager of Operations, the appointment of Dr. Maria Calhoun to the position of Director of Code Enforcement Community Appearance, the appointment of Larry Searles to the position of Director of Department of Public Works, and the appointment of Renee Hinojosa to the position of Director of Information Technology. Again, thank you to council. Comment for the council in the public, the coronavirus, we are taking some very basic precautions. They're more aligned along with what the County Health Department, State of Michigan is recommending. Both myself and Deputy Rena have been monitoring the World Health Organization website, different pieces of information coming to us. With it being flu season for influenza A and B, a lot of these are just good, sensible precautions, how we clean, wash our hands, respiratory protection, additional wipes in the library, surfaces in parks and rec have been wiped out. Just good general precautions for everyone in the community. Found it interesting. The World Health Organization did have a podcast for the 50 multinational corporations on the planet. So we're going to watch it and take it very serious. But these are good, general, safe precautions in light of just general flu and cold season. And then at our 2 council meetings ago, we had a resident come in regarding parking on the streets, and code is working through the enforcement efforts to ensure that. I have no other items this evening. Thank you.
All All right, thank you, Mr. Zorn. We'll move on to our attorney's portion. All right.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Excuse me. So I had a couple of things. I'll start with what Councilwoman Taylor just mentioned about the tax bill. So I did put together some language. I thought it was an administrative procedure, and I believe the Treasurer's Office was willing to do that. I just had the language that explains that whereas the Treasurer's Office is responsible for all monetary collections on behalf of the City of Southfield, including the collection and distribution of real and personal property taxes pursuant to Southfield City Charter, Section 5.8, as provided for in the Michigan Home Rule City Act, Act 279, whereas the City Council desires to implement a policy and procedure for payment of tax bills, now therefore be it resolved, the City of Southfield City Council does hereby determine and implement the following policy and procedure for tax payments. All City of Southfield tax bill payments shall state that checks are to be made payable to the City of Southfield and not the City Treasurer, effective with the tax bill of July 2020. Tax bill payments that are mailed or put in the drop box located at City Hall shall include the portion of the billing statement or notation on the check referencing the property parcel number. So I hope that suffices to resolve that. It's important, I believe, to make sure they have the parcel number on there also.
Okay.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Okay. Thank
So
you.
the second item that I wanted to bring to council this evening was back on, I believe it was Monday, the 27th of January, at a committee of the whole meeting, we had started discussing the charter amendment. At that time, I understood that language wanted to be presented, which specifically was regarding bringing back the primary, because in 2015, the vote was taken to the electors where we eliminated the primary for city elections. After that meeting, I had drafted some language, and I had put it in your packet for tonight's meeting. And of course, as always, this is governed by the Home Rule City Act that requires a 3/5 vote of the members-elect, and we do it by resolution. And also, it's a process that, regardless of how City Council wants to decide on the resolution, I will say that I had been asked if this was going to be discussed any further. I'm going to leave it to this honorable body. But I did want council to know that I've reached out to the Attorney General's office, because as you know, I have to send the proposed language that's going to be put on the ballot when the decision is made to review the language. And as a matter of fact, on Friday and even last fall, I have been in contact with somebody from the AG's office that works in this particular department, so I have to talk to him tomorrow, because they say it's important that you talk with the AG's office just to make sure you have the language right. I believe at the meeting, we pretty much came down to take it back the way it was, where that, I have to read the language, you have to forgive me, but especially under 3.3, hold on 1 second. It says that, not that we'll always have a primary, but there won't be a need for a primary. And I'm just going to read this from section 3.3 of the charter that says, however, that whenever the number of candidates for nominations to any office does not exceed twice to be elected to that office, then in such case, no primary election for the nomination of candidates shall be held. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because then the section option talked about 3 times 1 plus 1. So for example, in 2019, if we had 12 candidates, we may not have needed a primary last year, but if we had 13. So with that being said, I'm going to be in discussion with the Attorney General about the specific language, but I will leave it to the council as far as discussing or not discussing or voting to have the primary, because I had been asked, was this going to be brought back to another study session or committee of the whole? So with that, that is what I'll be doing. I'm talking to the Attorney General's office to get the right language, but as far as the 3/5 vote, I will leave that in the council's discretion.
So seeing that it has to, you have to talk back to them, then are you saying that we are not prepared to vote on something yet? Or-
Well, I looked at the language and I had some questions, but I was looking more as, are we going to definitely want to do this charter amendment? And then at that point, I just need to tweak the language so that when it goes to Attorney General, they're going to work with me throughout the whole process until it gets to the governor's regardless. But the first step is, will we have the 3/5 vote to say, yes, we definitely want to take it to the electors this year to have the primary.
Okay. Well, I think we definitely had a consensus from our COW meeting on last week, that with at least 5 of the members here. But, Mr. Brightwell, did you have something you want to add?
I'm gonna agree with you because we agreed on something, 5-2. And so I want to make sure that what we agreed to is what eventually ends up in the charter. I mean, what did we agree to? I mean,
it was the
yes. So I just want to make sure.
No, I know, because we got 2 options we could do. So we could go right back to just what we had before, and then I think it was Ms. Banks that proposed what was it, 3?
Three times 1 plus 1.
No, well, we had 5 votes for something, and I thought it would to eliminate, to bring back the primary, back to what it was. That was my understanding, what we voted on. And is there something different in the minutes or something different in the thinking of the 5 that voted for it? I mean,
It's just under the Home Rules City Act, I know there's going to be a certified letter that says that we had a 3/5 vote. So if I
can't hear what you're saying, Dawn. Can you?
I said, under the Home Rules City Act, I'm going to send a certified letter, and I have to know there was a 3/5, well, they have to know that there was 3/5 vote, quorum to put that into the letter that I'll eventually send. So that's all I need is a 3/5 vote if you want to bring the primary back. There was a question about were we going to discuss the language any further, but I had already presented something based on the last meeting, which was January 27th.
Okay. All right, I don't see why we have to go into any further discussion. I think it's pretty straightforward that we just need to take the vote.
Now, there's something in the minutes that is different. We said we wanted to take it back to where it was, and whatever was is what should be printed. I mean, whatever was.
Right, as long as we have a vote on the record.
We weren't talking about this 2 plus 1 or 3 times.
Well, it was 2 options, take it back as it was, and then the 3 times 1 plus 1. So all I have to show is that there was a vote, who moved for the vote for that.
I thought we voted on one thing. We didn't vote on any options, and people started talking after the vote. But whatever, I didn't vote on any options. I said just take it back to where it was, and that was it. It wasn't option 1, option 2.
Okay.
Because
is everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
With going back to what it previously was?
2 times.
Yeah.
Is that the language? What page are you looking at, Lenny? I want to make sure I'm looking.
Page 4. Under resolution option number 1, page 4. Under 3.3. Here, I give it to you. I highlighted it in green.
Yes.
Time.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
If it was what it was, that's what we voted on.
Yeah. So she needs to vote tonight, is what she's saying.
Correct. I was just going to say, I have to say who moved and who seconded. All of that's going to have to go to, into the Attorney General's letter, which then goes to the governor.
So you need a vote tonight.
Yes.
What did we vote for the last time?
Well, we were in committee of the whole. I thought that was more of a discussion, and there was a question, were we going to discuss it anymore, because I brought it to the regular meeting. So just to clarify everything, if there's not going to be any further discussion, this council decides it doesn't want further discussion, then I need an official vote.
Okay.
So wait. The vote at the COW meeting, I was under the impression that was just for you to put together the language for us to bring here, but I still thought at some point, since we had two options, we still might be discussing the two options. Is that not what we?
No.
Not what we had.
No. It was just to take it back to where it was. I mean, prior to changing it, whatever previously existed, that's what we wanted to go back to.
What do we have? I had some questions about option 2 anyway, but I mean, option 2 is not, I'm for option 1, which is originally bringing back the primaries. I know our colleagues that are not here right now, I know they had some thoughts as well. And Don, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Do you know how long it takes, this process?
So once they get it, once they officially have it, it could be 30 days for the Attorney General to review it, and then depending on what they say, be another 30 days for the governor's office, depending on what they decide. So it could be a 60-day process.
Okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
You still got questions?
Yeah, I do. Because I think, so now I see we have at least 60 days to be able to vote on this. For our colleagues that are not here right now, I mean, can we give them at least the opportunity to vote on this, since it is a charter amendment? I know that we don't want to make precedent for people who are absent from time to time on certain votes, but I feel like for a charter amendment, this might be something a little bit more important, and I know that they voiced their opinions on it, so even if it's going to go down, like, at least they have the opportunity to speak on it.
I thought we already did vote on it.
Yeah, what did we vote on last time? Through the chair.
Consensus.
Through the chair, we voted last time. That was a 5-1 definitive vote. That was what it was. And so, if we vote for something, that should be final, especially when you get 5 people voting for it. That should be final. What more definition you need for? That's what we want. So we had 5 votes, and are we having a question now of what we voted on? That's what. If what we voted on, that's what we want.
Well, I need to know who made the motion, and then for which option.
Mr. Mayor.
I need to look at the minutes.
You know, my impression was that there was a compromise proposed, and that some language was going to be brought back to consider the compromise.
Yeah.
And that's what Ms. King has done this evening. There's a lot of time between now and if this went on the November ballot. So I would, Council President, I would urge that this be postponed this evening, so that this can be clearer, and perhaps the other 2 council persons that are not here would be able to weigh in on it. I know they have strong opinions about it.
Through the chair, to the attorney, what's the latest that you can receive the information to have it put on the ballot?
I think by April, I should have everything in, and I know I'll have it done before then, because I'm talking to an AG tomorrow that I've been communicating with. As a matter of fact, I saw him Friday, so it's not something that I'm going to sit on because I think April is the deadline to make sure that it's on the ballot. So.
But what would you consider would be a sufficient amount of time? Because I think the drop dead date is May 24th. So you feel that it's sufficient to get it there a month in advance? What if there are questions that they have, or what is the deadline that you feel that you should get it to them with enough time for review and questions and?
Right, so like I said, I'll be talking to someone from the AG tomorrow. So knowing that what I think we're leaning towards, I mean, I'm gonna have the language there, and I guess once I know council is set on what they're voting on, we have that 3/5 vote, I can have it ready to go in March, you know, because this is the beginning of February, so it's not, I don't wanna say it's not a complicated amendment, because it's basically reversing, going back to what we had in 2015. I just want to make sure we have all our T's crossed, our I's dotted. So I just know when I send that letter, I have to say, you know, this council person made a motion, it was supported by this council person, and then I'm tweaking the language just to make, and maybe there isn't going to be any change in the language. For example, for option 1, I'm confirming that by having a discussion with the Attorney General tomorrow. It's just, I want to make sure this council is feeling comfortable knowing that we had the 3/5 vote, knowing, okay, yes, we're going with option 1. No, we don't have any more questions about option 2. I just want, you know, everyone to be comfortable, make sure I have the right language in terms of who motioned and who seconded. That's it, and I think we'll be okay. It won't be something long and drawn out, because remember, there was I'm looking at the minutes now, there was discussion of something else, and we said, we'll leave it as is. So that simplified the process for me, because the ballot language has to address one subject, you can only have 100 words, so everything is pretty much there. It's just like putting that bow on there, but the tire of that bow is this honorable body.
Okay, then, with all that in mind, if this council, can we make a motion to postpone this until the next meeting? Would that give you enough time?
That'll give me more than enough time.
To the next meeting? That'll give you time to talk?
And the only thing I would ask, I want to make sure I know who's here, and if it's a discussion, and if we have to do a Rule 10, I'll be ready.
Okay.
That's fine. So we'll just pull it for tonight's meeting, and we'll come back.
On the 24th?
On the 24th, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. President, can I get a clarification? Because I know in the past, to get on the November ballot, and is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
I thought it was August. As I recall from a past ballot, or charter ballot.
Mm-hmm.
No, the city clerk just texted me.
So
She said
I don't
it was due in May.
understand. I'm just clarification. I really don't. Confused.
We got 2 weeks to clarify it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's one of the questions I'd like.
We'll make sure that's all clear when we bring it back.
Okay.
No,
Thank you.
I can clarify it now. It is in.
We'll make sure we have everything together. I understand. Ms. Hawkins, okay, got with you. That's fine. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from the clerk's office? I'm sorry. Ms. King, did you have anything else?
Not at this moment.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Council President Cruz. I do have a couple of things I want to discuss tonight. I just want to let the residents of Southfield know that I will be overseeing the presidential primary on March 10th of 2020. And I just want to give them a couple of dates that are very important. I wanted all the residents to know that February 24th is the last day to register in any form for absentee ballots other than in person. It has to be next on the 24th. So we have 2 weeks from today to register either via mail or any other form. Absentee ballots were mailed out. Those individuals that sent us applications, we've mailed out their ballots. If you would like to fill out an application, you can do your ballot now at the counter 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. We will be using all 36 precincts for this election, and they will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. on March 10th. Absentee voting will be available every day from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. As you can see in the vestibule area, we have set up our booths. And on March 7th, we will be open from 7 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m.
All right, thank you very much. Anything, planner, assessor, engineer? Okay. We just got one ordinance to enact.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Brightwell.
I make a motion that we move move that ordinance number 1717 PZR 0DD19-003 be enacted.
Support.
Been moved by Mr. Brightwell, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we approve or enact ordinance number 1717. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anything else, council, for the good of the order? Mr.
I'm
Mayor?
sorry, I had a question for the clerk. When is the, usually it's 30 days, but February only got 29, so when is the last day to register to vote?
Any way other than in person is the 24th. Because of now, you can register to vote right up through Election Day. The date has been changed.
Okay.
So there really isn't a, what you say?
It's not the 30-day rule anymore?
No, sir.
Right. Just wanted to bring that out.
Anything else? If not, meeting is adjourned.